My name is Cecilia. I will tell you the story of how I became a witch. This is my story. It all began when I was 7 years old.
Cecilia was a young girl who had lost her parents in a fire accident. At a very young age, she was left to leave all alone. But because she couldn't survive alone, she went to live with her aunt named Mary, who lived in a neighboring village. One morning, her aunt woke her up from sleep and told her, "Stand up, we'll be embarking on a very far journey to a neighboring village." Cecilia, who was naive, went along with her aunt. They passed 7 rivers before arriving at a thick forest. They took a path in the thick forest and walked for 3 hours before they arrived, under a very big old tree. Under the tree was a very old woman who sat looking so unkempt and her body red of an offensive odor like that of its spoiled milk. Her aunt said to the old woman, "This is her. I have brought her to you." The old woman asked her, "Are you sure?" "I should proceed." "Are you sure she will survive it?" Her aunt replied, "Yes, I am sure she will survive it." The old woman gave Cecilia a black liquid from a wooden cup to drink. Cecilia refused, but her aunt persuaded her, and after she took the drink, she fainted. When she woke up, she found herself at her aunt's house on her bed. How she came back was something she did not know. Poor Cecilia, who was only but a little girl, couldn't help but keep quiet after that day. Cecilia began to feel strange. She could see things she never saw before. She possessed the power to summon strange spirits, and most times she would have strange people staring at her. Cecilia was scared and troubled. She quickly went to complain to her aunt about the strange things that she sees. "Auntie Mary, I saw a strange spirit looking at me inside the room. They make me so scared. They always come for me. I hate seeing them. They are so ugly. They make me scared, please. I don't want to see them anymore. Please help me," her aunt said. "Don't worry, Cecilia. You will soon get very used to it, and you'll be loving your new powers." Poor little Cecilia believed her aunt, Mary, was known to be an expert spiritual herbalist who was known across the whole village for our strong herbal portions. Most married women would come to get some of the herbs and magical assistance from his aunts in order to pay revenge to their husband's mistress or teach their offenders a lesson. Cecilia's aunts only gave assistance to women who had issues in their marriage or whose life was in danger. She never used her magic for evil, but only for due revenge, and she refused to be of any assistance to anyone who wanted to borrow her powers forever. Cecilia began to learn how to make some magical spells and portions from her aunt. She would follow her aunt to the mountains to pick special herbs, which were used to make magic portions for women who chose to terminate unwanted pregnancies. Cecilia learned all this from her aunt for many years, and after 12 years of staying with her aunt, she grew into a beautiful woman who was ready and ripe for marriage. Cecilia met a young man named Felix. Both began a relationship, but 3 months into the relationship, Felix began to notice something strange about Cecilia. He sees Cecilia staring at nobody at times. Sometimes she talks to herself, and this made Felix very uncomfortable with Cecilia, and he began to look for the slightest excuse to end his relationship with her. Unfortunately, Cecilia became pregnant for Felix. Cecilia was scared that she had disappointed her aunt, and that she might throw her out of her house. She met Felix and told him about her pregnancy. But Felix, who was looking for a way to end the relationship, denied the pregnancy. Cecilia was heartbroken and devastated. She was confused and didn't know what to do. Cecilia finally opened it up and told her aunt about the situation. Her aunt was very upset and angry at her, but she took Cecilia to Felix's house and asked him why he had refused to accept the pregnancy. Felix replied, "Them saying she's lying. I am not the one responsible, and she knows it. She's just lying against me. She made this all up. I am not responsible, and this is final." Cecilia was so angry at Felix. She was very unhappy that Felix had disgraced her in front of her aunt and the community. She decided to take revenge on Felix. She vowed to destroy Felix, Cecilia said to herself. "Felix had the gods to betray me in front of my aunt. He called me a liar for something he knew was the truth. I will deal with him. The battle line has been drawn. He asked for war, and he will get war from me. I will go to the mountains and prepare his worst nightmare." Cecilia went up to the mountain to pick some herbs and prepare for her revenge. But one thing was missing for this revenge mission in order to successfully destroy Felix. She needed a blood sample from his family member or him directly, but since he was far away, it wasn't possible to get it from him. The child in her womb was the only direct connection she had to Felix, so she decided to terminate the pregnancy and use the blood from it to destroy him and end his life. She missed some herbs and drank from it. She was able to terminate the pregnancy successfully, after which she had enough blood to walk with. She held the ball of blood under the full moon and began to cast spells on it, destroying Felix's business and placing a curse of a deadly disease on him. And it worked. Few weeks after Felix began to get sick. He got very weak. And at the days past, he died. Cecilia was very happy that she got her revenge. She danced, and she celebrated her victory. Her aunt, on hearing what Cecilia did, was very upset and unhappy with Cecilia for such a wicked act that she had performed upon her unborn child. And the father of the child, she angrily sent Cecilia out of her house. And Cecilia was left with nowhere to go or leave. She went to stay at the outskirt of the village, in a little hut near the mountain one day. After 2 years, as he was going to the mountains to pick some herbs, she met a very wealthy farmer named Marcus. He fell in love with Cecilia and married her. Cecilia moved into Marcus' house, and they began to live as husband and wife. But 2 months later, Marcus began to notice this strange behavior. She would be talking to herself and laughing to herself, as well most times he would hear her doing some strange things. Marcus confronted her and asked her why she was behaving in such a strange manner. But she replied and said to him, "Why are you surprised? This is the way of my life. I have been this way since I was 7 years old, and it is my normal way of life." This made Marcus very scared and weary, and as the day gone by, Marcus began to notice some bad luck and set back in his business. He was no longer making sales and profit as he used to. Everything began to get worse by the day. For Marcus, one day he sat at the door of his house and was thinking to himself, "What kind of woman have I gotten for myself? I have brought trouble on myself. Could it be that I married the ghost? Ever since I married her, things have really gone bad for me. And she always displays this strange and abnormal attitude. No, I can't take this anymore. I need to send her out of my house as soon as possible. I cannot let her continue living under my roof before things get worse." Marcus sent Cecilia out of his house. Cecilia left, and under the space of 2 years, she got married to 4 different men, but they all ended their marriage with her. Cecilia was now alone, shunned by everyone. Everyone was scared of her. She left the village and went to live in a small hut on the outskirts of town, and the only time she came out was at night to gather food and look for water one night. As she was walking through the forest, she came across a group of strange men. They were dressed in black robes, and their faces were hidden behind masks. These men approached Cecilia, and one of them said to her, "We have been waiting for you. We know about your powers, and we want you to join us." Cecilia was hesitant at first, but the men were persuasive. They promised her that she would no longer be alone, and that she would finally find a place where she belonged. Cecilia agreed to go with the men, and they led her deep into the forest. They came to a clearing in the middle of the forest, and there was a large black stone. The men gathered around the stone and began to chant. Cecilia felt a strange power coursing through her veins. She closed her eyes and concentrated on the chant. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the forest. She was in a strange and dark place. The air was thick, and with the smell of incense, a man stepped out from the shadows. He was tall and handsome, with dark hair and piercing red eyes. He said, "Welcome. I've been expecting you." Cecilia was afraid, but she asked, "Who are you? Who are you?" "I am the leader of this coven. We are a group of people who possess extraordinary powers. We are called the Children of the Night." "And why have you brought me here?" I asked. "Because we need you. You are one of us." "You are one of the Children of the Night?" Cecilia didn't know what to say. She was still afraid, but she was also starting to feel a sense of belonging. She hesitated for a moment, and then she nodded. "Yes, I will join you." She said Bully was initiated and joined the Children of the Night. She was given a tax to bring souls to them, and she immediately got to work. She went into the village to carry out her mission. When she got to the village, she disguised herself as a very beautiful lady, wearing beautiful dresses, and any man she came across, she would place a spell on the man, which would make the man fall in love with her. When the man takes her to his house, she will turn into a big snake and bite them, leaving a dangerous venom into his body, and leaving them to die while he goes on to the next victim. One day, she came across a handsome man named Chris. Chris couldn't take his eyes off her because she was looking very beautiful. Chris was caught by her spell and he took her home in the middle of the night. She turned into a big snake and beat him and disappeared. She kept killing the men in the village in the same manner until one day, something happened which changed her life forever. She came across a powerful priest as she was about to cast a spell on him. The priest rebuked her and sprinkled an anointed oil on her. She immediately turned into a big snake. He made some powerful prayers on her, and she turned back into a human being. And at that moment, she lost all her evil powers. That was how she was saved and became a real human being. Once again, she was very happy, and she lived a fulfilled life after. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting African tales.